So today I want to show you something that is very dear to my heart, and it's called a travel journal. Although it can be any size, obviously for practical reason it's really advisable to be small. And I like this really small one. It's A6 or about 10 by 15 centimeters, 4 by 6 inches. And I really love it because it's perfect for the double page spread. You still have enough space that you can write something down, you can draw something on, and for me it's perfect. And I'll show you all the pages inside in just a moment. But first I'd like to discuss some things that might help you choose the right travel journal for you. One we've already touched on, it's the size and therefore heaviness. It's not the same thing because the bigger sizes can have thin paper and be paperback, and they can still be lighter than smaller hardcover and very thick sketchbooks. But in general, the bigger the sketchbook, the heavier it is, given it has the same paper and cover. I prefer to have the hardcover, to be honest, because this thing gets carried on a lot. It gets on trains, it gets in the car, it gets on the beach, it gets on the rocks. I leave it to dry on the rocks while I go swimming and so on, so it better be durable. As for the paper, I prefer to have something also sturdy enough that it can handle watercolor. That's because I love watercolor. If you're not a watercolorist and if you will just be using pencils and color pencils, that's perfectly fine as well, and you can choose different kind of paper. Then even thinner paper might work just well for you in that case. The reason why so many travel journals are used with watercolors is because they're so portable. You can have a few colors in one little box and you can do a lot with them. And it's not quite the same with other materials where you have to carry more with you. They're very, very portable. So a lot of urban sketchers and a lot of travel journalers use watercolors. So if you plan to use them, test the paper first at home so you see how it reacts, and if it's fine with you, then it's okay. This paper is not watercolor paper, but for these small surfaces it's okay. It gets a bit wrinkled, as you can see, but it's not so much, it doesn't bleed through. As you can see, it's still okay. And that's fine for me. If you wanted to make something really special and if you wanted to sell those pages, you probably need a better paper. But usually we don't sell our travel journals, and they're just made for us and for our memories, to remember what we did with our kids, our grandkids, our friends, and whoever we took vacation with. So now you know how to choose your travel journal. If you want to use watercolors, use a travel journal that can handle watercolor somewhat to the degree that you want. Test your pens and on your paper. So if you use some brush pens, can bleed through like crazy. Copics bleed through like crazy. And that's okay if you want to just use one page of your travel journal and put another sheet of paper in between so it doesn't cross-contaminate the next page. That's fine as well. You know, you can adapt this thing however you like. I just prefer when I go somewhere to use both pages so that I can just, you know, flip through, and I like this kind of experience. But even if I didn't have this kind of journal, I could postpone, just glue two pages together, those that had the bled through things, and that would work as well. That's one thing. Test your materials with your chosen art journal first before you go to vacation. Think about how big you want your things to be. As I showed you in previous video, I've got everything in this small little bag, and this one travels with me everywhere I go. And it's very practical because I just grab it and go. I don't have to think about it, everything is already packed, and whenever I come somewhere I just take what I need and I can get to painting and drawing in a matter of seconds, literally. And that's fun. So let's see what's inside. As many people more knowledgeable about this advised, I leave this first page just blank and I will always come back to it after everything is done. Here I wrote a quote that I have to write nicely, and as you can see, this one is not finished yet either, although this is 1 year ago. I don't know when I'll get to it. Then I just go in and I record every day of my traveling or of my daily life, depends. And this is really fun because you get to look back what you did, how you did it. Here I even have a sketch of how I put my iPad onto the desk so that I could record everything, and now I do it differently. And it, you know, this kind of small details really make it interesting. They make it yours. You can see which ice cream flavors you ate, where you went for swimming, and what your kids did, what you bought. You can even write the prices if you want to. Some people really enjoy that. And of course you can make some little comic book inserts when something funny happens. This is when we were planning and packing last year to go to the vacation, and then I packed a huge pile of stuff, and my alpha male was wondering, this all is going to the seaside? And then I answered him, well, otherwise I'll be hungry. Because it's mostly food. We have to know that, because the food at that island is really expensive. So we take all the food with us. And you can also combine ideas. Like here I made my daughter this beautiful dress that she loves, and the same day was also a referendum for waters, and I just extended the dress into the river because it was really moving how many people showed up for our rivers. I really loved it. And this is our travel day when we went from my hometown, the city I love, to the island I love. And it was, as you can see, a big drive, and with various modes of transport, but we made it. And then what we did at the seaside, some acrobatics at the sea, some journaling, and a visit from a friend. Then the daddy went back home, what we did with the kids, and so on. It's really different when you see these things that you've been through on the page, and you've got some text to accompany it. So for instance, my kids love blind tests. They love trying different stuff and then finding out which one we love the best. So I did this with my eldest daughter. We tried different blue cheeses and green cheeses, and if you would ask me now, I would forget which one was her favorite. But now I know, and I can always reference this. And then there are things that you forget, like the competition of subs and how they made a dock in the Bay Area, or what we made for Daddy when he came back, and so on. These are the little details that, you know, give flavor to your life. And you can get creative with how you report your days as well in your journal. Like here I made a movie stripe, because at the end of this day we watched a movie. So this is where the idea came from, but then it went in a chronological order like a movie would go. Documentary movie in that case would go. Whatever happens, you can just journal about it. And it's really fun. Sometimes you can journal about something that you learned. Here, for instance, I made this page according to some tutorial I was making about character design. So I made this one, and I made what we ate today, and we got our sup. And here's the recipe for the ice cream we made that day. So you can combine different things. They don't need to be the same to be interesting. You can just unite everything with the same colors or with the same aesthetics. Many things look good together even if you don't know. And as you can see, I kind of started with this very complicated design and then I made it easier when I went along otherwise, because I didn't want to spend all day doing that. And it doesn't matter in the end. It can still be fun. You can also make fun exercises, art exercises in your art journal. Here I made the scribbles and characters from these scribbles. I really love this mosquito. Yeah, I really love that one. I love how he's colorful and I love everything about it, which is rare for a character that I make. And here are the blobs, and it's a lot of fun. And also, if you make your exercises in a journal like this, you will remember them, or you will see them again when you flip through it. And you can get to the mood if it's raining, or if you're all sad, or if it's both at the same time, like this. Here Dad went home again and it was also raining, so that's why this theme. And it can be a lot of fun. As you can see, there's a lot of food in my travel journal, because there's a lot of food in our lives, to be honest. I got 3 kids that are hungry all the time, and if I don't want them to become hangry, I have to cook something, you know. And they also help me. Here is my little one helping making dinner. So it's a lot of fun. And this kind of things, you know, like when this is the boat that brings water to this island, and they have these old tubes that are broken in several places, and my kids go and take the big bowls and bring fresh drinking water home, and they have so much fun with that. This is something that probably we will all forget if I won't have this recorded. And with a travel journal, it's nice because you get to edit out. We take photos of everything, but we rarely take photos when we're really in the flow, at the best thing that happened, and we forget to take the photos then because we're too much in that moment, hopefully. But this, when you are in the evening and you're doing this, you remember it and you can put it in. Like here I made a thank you card for my almost 400 subscribers on IG, and you can combine different stuff. You can change the clothes that characters are wearing if you want to make it more cohesive, but sometimes things just, you know, naturally come along. Like this neighbor at the beach brought me some watermelon, and she was also wearing this kind of shirt. So that's a nice detail, and it's also a nice design afterwards. And it's good because it reminds me that she's a graphic designer. So, you know, these things, when you draw it differently than you would if you were just to take a photo, because I put emphasis on the things that are most important. Here we were painting and doing our homemade postcards, and I made everything in stamp frames, everything that we did that day. Here I drew what I learned how to paint in Procreate, and then I just painted it here as well. And my daughter made her first mask, because, you know, it was 2021, we all had to wear masks at that time. Currently we don't have to, we'll see what time brings. And then you can also, you don't always have to have these spots and parts and arrows, but they help with the flow. But sometimes a nice illustration and a chunk of text also works. Depends on how much you want to write and how much you want to see. And you can always emphasize some things, but I have to mention I didn't emphasize anything here. He really was carrying all that stuff. This one has to be colored in yet. And this last, yeah, they still need to be colored. Hopefully I'll get to it soon. And sometimes the repetition makes it for an interesting drawing. And some more that have to be colored. I really like this one. I did this one from a photo of him because I needed to have a reference. And he really looks like himself. All the others are just done like from memory. But if you want to catch a real likeness, sometimes it helps if you take a picture and then try to get the likeness of people you're drawing. So I hope I convinced you that having a travel journal is nice. It pays off and it really brings memories alive that you might forget otherwise. Now I hope this flip through gave you some ideas what you can put into your travel journal. It doesn't always need to be so beautiful and designed. You don't have to draw the buildings. Maybe you're even or not in a place where the buildings would be so interesting. Maybe you're just in, a hotel resort somewhere and the buildings are kind of boring. We don't all travel to Paris, for our holidays. But you can put in the normal, small, little moments of your life. Are the things that you will remember, probably better than you would remember a certain building. You can always find great photos of buildings if you want to put them in on the internet, and you can have the reference and you can try to make it really beautiful. If that's your thing, that's great. Put it in if you love it. But if you feel intimidated by those buildings, don't try to force it. It's not a problem. You don't have to put the same thing that other people put in their travel journals. The beauty of these things is that you can make them yours. If you're into food, draw food. If you're into sports, draw sports. If you're into buildings and museums and stuff, draw that. And if you like some of that and some of that, draw everything together. You can make it cohesive somehow, and it might not look great on the first try, in the first year, but you will get to it eventually for sure. And if you stick to your travel journal and do 1 page a day, I'm sure by the end of your holidays you would get better. But if 1 page per day is too much for you, that's okay. You don't need to spend 2 hours a day on your page. You can do a 10-minute page, or you can do 1 page every 5 days. It doesn't matter. Just make some art. Any art is better than no art. And the more you narrow down, the more you will edit out things that are not so interesting, and the more you will keep just the memories that are really, really calling you, and the things that you would really like to remember. And that's the point of travel journal, so that you remember your holidays from your perspective and from what gave you and the people that were there with you joy and brought you laughter and some maybe even awkward moments, but this, the worst decision lead to best stories, as they say, and I can attest to that for sure. I don't know how many times we laughed and had a very good time about our decisions that were quite questionable at the time. So put that in. That's the thing that's yours and that's really interesting to you in the future, and maybe to your kids. My kids always fight about who will get my journals, so I guess there's something in there that they like. I hope you make a page or two on your holidays, and see you next week. Bye bye!